So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone 10, should you buy this thing in 2021? That's the topic of today's video. We're gonna head over into eBay and check out. This thing's hovering right around $300 to $350. Now, to keep in mind what you can get for that price from the iPhone land new would be something like an iPhone SE 2020 right now, around that same price point. And this is not a full comparison, but I want to talk about some of the differences here. If you decide to pick up something like the iPhone 10, you would get over just buying one of these new SEs at that same price. You'll get stainless steel over here for the iPhone 10. You'll also get a dual camera versus a single, although I do think the iPhone SE's camera is a bit better, that main lens it does have. The iPhone 10 will give you this all screen display, OLED, and it also does have 625 nits of brightness, so it's a very bright display. And overall, just the more modern look. If you look at the newer iPhone 12, this phone right here is definitely closer to that than this iPhone SE. So yeah, I just wanted to make that comparison here really quickly before we talk more about it, that the iPhone 10 is around that price. So you have to weigh your options here if you're in this market of $300 to like $400 here for an iPhone. And keep in mind, guys, when I was talking about the price of these two, I was referring to their full retail prices. I wasn't talking about, you could take your $200, go to the carrier store, pay off the rest of the remainder, and you got yourself a 12 Pro. I'm not saying that. That's a whole different story. You're actually paying near the full retail over time. I'm talking about the actual price here of the device. Let's talk about the body. Take a look at those scratches. Don't you like those nice worn-in scratches? Those nice beat-up, old school, the phone, you've had the phone a while, scratches on your phone? Look, the stainless steel on here is boss. I don't care what anybody says. This phone still feels premium. Definitely in 2021, there's nothing about stainless steel that's become less premium just because years have went on. This aluminum lightweight stuff is nice for something like the SE or the iPhone 12, but you cannot touch the stainless steel when it comes to premium feel. On the back, we do have textured backs on the new one, but again, remember, Apple's still selling phones with glass backs here. So even the iPhone 12 has a glass back, doesn't have that texture that's reserved for the pros. So there's nothing really bad about this right here. Now you could say that camera, somebody sees your camera, they're gonna know you got the old iPhone. I get it. It's an image thing. We know you got the older iPhone if we see this camera hump. But at the same time, there's nothing really ugly about it. I think it's a pretty clean looking phone. Now, the body in terms of what it has in terms of resistance is IP67. So you're looking at dust resistant, looking at about 1 meter for about 30 minutes. So it's not really the best in the market, but it's not bad either. I gotta say, the weight of it, 174 grams. The phone, pretty light, but a little bit of heft to make it feel premium. This is just a premium build. It was a flagship phone, still kind of feels like that in 2021. And look, guys, the iPhone 10 actually stood this test of time because Apple's really conservative and not really switching up the look. I mean, this phone right here looks very similar on the front to any current iPhone with the notch up here. Very similar. And that brings me on to its display. So this was the first time Apple brought an OLED display, partnered with Samsung on this one to bring you OLED, Super Retina OLED, HDR10, 625 nits. This thing had a 458 PPI density. This was the best display we've ever seen on an iPhone when it came out, and it has held its own over all these years. This phone still has a fantastic overall display quality. If you're looking for something that you want that's just not LCD and you just want something a little more colorful, the iPhone 10 can help you out there. I really haven't seen there being much of an upgrade to any of the phones that came after this besides the brightness. I really love the brightness for the 11 Pro series. But other than that, the iPhone 10 has really held its own. And to me, this is still a premium top tier display. But if there's one thing I will tell you that makes this display lose its luster is when Apple does introduce the ProMotion display, it will. But for 60 Hertz, Apple with their animations, with how smooth iOS is, it's really smooth even with this. So yeah, that's pretty nice there. And if you're browsing on the web, sometimes the notch will cut into content. If you're having things that can landscape, let's go ahead and switch it over to landscape here. You can see sometimes the notch does get in the way. That's gonna look old once Apple reduces that, but for now if you bought it now, most of their phones still operate in the same fashion. And let's talk about software, but I forgot to mention this phone does have 3D touch, which was faster than what we have now with the new haptic feedbacks, and we have dark mode, true tone, making the visual experience very nice for you. But talking about software here, we do have the iOS 14.3. We're still waiting on that 14.4 official for this, but yeah, software definitely up to date. You knew that when you bought this iPhone back in the day, and if you didn't buy this yet, you know you have software updates still coming to this device. I wouldn't doubt at all that the iPhone 10 will be getting iOS 15, so definitely you'll be covered coming up here in June of this year, so not worried about that. The software does bring the app library, which kind of keeps everything algorithmically neat here in these folders. You also have now the ability to add widgets to the iPhone. You could add them on the home screen. You could customize this a little bit more. However, the apps still kind of fly up kind of like that, so they don't really have the ability to put it anywhere you want on the screen. You can go through your pages really quickly. You can hide some pages on here as well within iOS 14. There's also, in addition, more privacy features. So let's put it this way. You are not left behind if you bought an iPhone 10. You are on the latest and greatest version of the software. Okay guys, so let's talk about performance. This phone actually has a 10 nanometer CPU, and 7 nanometers are out, 5 nanometers are out, so Apple has come a long way again. They're constantly pushing their boundaries on the processor, but the iPhone 10 really hasn't slowed down that much, and this is just a testament of, do you really need that much power in an iPhone? Because the software is so smooth that even using this right now, I mean, it just doesn't feel slow at all. I really don't get this phone to choke up. Never. There's nothing that feels even outdated about it. It's kind of crazy how long the performance has been lasting on this phone. You can see clocked at 2.4 gigahertz, only 3 gigs of RAM, but I say only, but 3 gigs of RAM on an iPhone is kind of like 6 or 8 gigs of RAM on an Android phone in terms of its day-to-day performance. Now, yes, if I have 1,001 apps open and I go open something else, sometimes it might pause it, it might reload it, but I mean, there's no real delays or lag on the day-to-day with the iPhone 10. So I could pick this phone up, I could use the iPhone SE from 2020, I could use the iPhone 12 Pro, and the average person is going to be like, this is the same thing, bro. The same exact performance. So yes, thumbs up. If you're looking in 2021 to buy this, your performance, don't worry about it. It's definitely fine right now. When it starts to delay, I will let you guys know in future videos. Okay guys, let's talk about the camera. Let's just quickly tell you what they are. They're dual 12 megapixel cameras. One is f1.8, one is f2.4. So they let in plenty of light, taking some pretty nice photos. They also can do 4K 60 on the rear. You don't have a wide angle, so it's not as fun to use as a wide angle camera. But if you can buy this single lens camera right here, an iPhone 10R, you can still buy and not have a second lens. You can still punch in 2x and do some 4K 60 on this. But here's where it's a little bit let down compared to newer phones. Over here, selfie camera, 7 megapixels, doesn't match up great with the rear. It also doesn't look as good as the newer iPhones in that respect. But I think if you get the lighting right, if you nail your lighting, you nail your composition, you will definitely get a pretty amazing photo out of this. It can still do HDR photos. It can still take exceptional. I mean, if you put a picture on Instagram right now, you took it in good lighting, you did a good overall job on your photography, nobody's going to know you took it on an iPhone 10. So that says a lot about where this camera is at. I think the portrait modes have been greatly improved. I think the overall night modes coming to the newer iPhones made this a much more versatile setup, but they did bring the video format control at least, and there's not as many pro features as the new one inside the app, but again, there's third-party options to do that. If I could sum up the iPhone 10 camera, I would say it's adequate for an iPhone in 2021. A little bit better than a basic iPhone, but it's no pro iPhone. You should be happy with it, but you should know what you're getting if you buy this. It's not going to be the top experience on an iPhone, but if you haven't had an iPhone before and this is your first one, you had a cheaper phone, this is going to feel like a major upgrade for you still, even in 2021. Okay guys, when it comes to the audio, Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and just like with the 7 series, the 8 series, Apple did put stereo. To my iPhone 12 Pro 2 months later. Now in this episode, loud enough. Again, at the highs, I will say that the iPhone 10 doesn't sound quite as good. I'm going to share with you what I've learned about this phone after using it for 2 months. As an 11 Pro, for example, but it's not really a big deal because it still gets plenty loud. It still has a stereo experience, which to me is what makes the phone feel more premium overall. Now, I want to go on to battery life. I actually did an all-day battery test with this back in the day, and it made it. it made it through the whole day. I mean, it wasn't crushing it. We weren't like having the best battery life ever on a phone, but it makes it the day. And when you pick up one of these, look for one that has a higher maximum capacity. This is a 2716 milliamp hour battery in here, but for its size, it's pretty nice that this phone could get through a full day. It also supports fast charging. You'll need the brick for it. But other than that, I mean, that's about it with this phone. We could talk about phone call quality, how it didn't have the best radios. There's no Qualcomm in here. But that's really going to be dependent on where you're from, where you're at, the signal strength you have in your area. It might be great, it might be horrible. So do keep that in mind when picking one of these up. But in conclusion, iPhone 10, should you buy it in 2021? I've been recommending this phone for the past few years. And I would say it's getting to the point where it kind of depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from a cheaper Android phone, it's your first iPhone, you only got around $300 to spend, you can kind of decide between these two right here. You don't want to go on a carrier plan, you don't want to pay on the phone. You can kind of decide between these two right here. If you're like, look, Nick, I just need a separate phone for my kid, for a gift for somebody, whoever, significant other, but I just want to pay like $300. This could be a good option. Or if you're like, I dropped my phone, I broke it, I need something quick. This could be another decent option to hold you over until the next iPhone. It's still up to date. It still works pretty well, but it does feel significantly upgraded if you were to hold a newer iPhone. Apple did a good job upgrading this, but this iPhone 10 is still a decent $300 to $400 option, if you will. So thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on the iPhone 10. Are you picking it up this year in 2021 or not? I would love to know down below in the comments. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Nick here, and peace.